That's the end of the Green Bay Packers game, or the 2-point try, I guess I should say, before they got one more crack at it there. Coach Billick joins us now. Coach, the Green Bay Packers, man, it looks so good just 3 weeks ago, and now it looks like a reeling organization. I want to read a tweet as I welcome you in here and let you comment on it here, as we do each and every week. During the game, you tweeted out, "At what point does Mike McCarthy, one of the best play callers in the game, take back the reins and right the ship for the Packers?"
Yeah, and saying that too, and I talked about this last week on a number of venues, I don't think that's what he should do, but he may be compelled to do it. I think it would be a mistake because it's not play calling right now. Obviously, the way they're going along, it's a lethal combination of they don't have anybody to take the proverbial top off the defense. Teams, we're seeing that in Denver, with Peyton Manning as well. They're just keep creeping up and building more and more people under that 10-yard level saying, hey, if you can go deep, go ahead and try it. So if you're not very explosive and you're not very good on third down. Last year, the Packers were third in the league in third down conversion. Now they're in the bottom end. So they're just not getting – you can't overcome that. You either got to be methodical and move it down the field, convert on third down and get a bunch of 10, 12-play drives, or you got to be explosive. If you're neither, that's not very good, and particularly against a Detroit team that has not won in Green Bay since either one of you were born.
No, come on, Coach. We're older than that. I was in eighth grade. I was in eighth grade when that came out. So I peaked as an athlete at that age, but I was in eighth grade.
Coach, to stay on that point, to stay on your point about you say they don't have anyone who can take the top off the defense. I think for so long we we didn't give Jordy Nelson enough credit for being one of the special receivers. So when you're the coach and you lose Jordy Nelson and now you realize that you don't have a dude in that receiver core, how do you manufacture that kind of production to help those other receivers get open?
Well, you've got to be multiple. And the thing with Green Bay has always been they build so much from within. And Aaron Rodgers has always developed a core, 4 and 5 deep, of guys that he basically taught. Basically that, you wink, I'll nod. He knew where they were going before they did, and they build that sixth sense with the entire receiving corps. Typically, you'll see a quarterback and a guy, a Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, that have that sense. Well, Aaron Rodgers is used to having that with the entire receiving corps. So you take the bell cow away in Jordy Nelson, and you still have some capable guys, but there's not the absolute go-to guy to kind of anchor that thing, because you still need that anchor, even though you're very multiple. I always equate it to the fact that I wanted a basketball team on my team in terms of receivers. I don't want all centers. I don't want all forwards, all point guards. I want diversity. But they don't have that one. But you still have to have the bell cow.
Yeah.
I don't care whether it's your shooting guard. I don't care if it's a 3-point forward. I don't care if it's your center. Even though you're diverse and you got to have your Michael Jordan, for lack of a better term. And to lose a Jordy Nelson, obviously Cobb has been beat up a little bit. They've got a few guys there, but and the fact that they're not running the ball at all, the defense is still a little suspect, hasn't been as solid as it needs to be. They will rebound to a degree. The hard thing is, and I thought the salvation was going to be they're in the division. They're going to play Detroit, Minnesota, Chicago, come back and play Minnesota again, get right, create some separation as to how good they really were, would see. But to go into Minnesota, and Minnesota is by damn sight a better team than Detroit. This is crisis time.
Coach, one more question on the Packers here before we move on. You talk about that field shrinking on them and everybody kind of creeping up on them. When I watched the tape of this one, Devontae Adams singled up on verticals almost the entire game. He probably had 8 or 9 times down the field where he could add some opportunities one-on-one. Aaron only threw it down there once. He ended up dropping it. But have you ever been in a situation with a quarterback where you've said, look, this is the play call, and I don't care if it's complete or incomplete. We're throwing this ball down the field. We got to figure out a way to loosen things up. Have you ever given that specific instruction to somebody?
Yeah, when I was in Minnesota in those phenomenal offensive years, seems like a million years ago, of course. But when I had Randall Cunningham, Randall was hesitant. Randall was all about wanting to show he could play quarterback from the pocket, wanted to have high completion percentage, convert on third down. So he was bypassing some shots down the field because he didn't want to turn the ball over. He wanted to be the good soldier, so to speak. So we had to create a play call, and I had to make sure he understood, look, Randall, when I call this play, go vertical. And if it's wrong, that's on me. Okay, now, if they're running 5 guys there, I'm going to ask you to cover me a little bit and go ahead and drop it off. But these are our vertical plays, And if we get anywhere near the right coverage, I'm taking the onus off of you. You go vertical, and I'll take the responsibility. And he needed that. He needed to take that governor off, and it actually helped. Now, do you have to do that with an Aaron Rodgers? I don't think so. Does he just not have faith that they're going to complete it down there? Is he, because they're so struggling on third down, is he doesn't want to put himself in those third and longs, so he's opting for these underneath throws? There's a lot of elements to it.
Coach, you talked about that tremendous receiving corps that you had in Minnesota. One of your tweets yesterday talked about a receiver in Martavis Bryant. You said there are 18 receivers taken in the 2014 NFL draft before Martavis Bryant. What did you mean by that, and what do you see when you see Bryant on the field?
Well, and I had the opportunity, and in hindsight's great. Oh, yeah, we all have taken Martavis Bryant now. And I remember I went down to Clemson, and I spoke at their clinic. James Trapp, James Trapp, Daniel invited me down, was great, and got to spend some time with them. And I got to meet Martavis Bryant after the clinic, and he was going to work out, and I'm just there watching just as a nothing. And I called Ozzie and said, wow. I said, I don't know what this guy's off the field problems are, but unless he is absolutely, blown up the chemistry building, this guy's impressive. And Daniel, we were already talking about how hard it was for us to find a go-to guy at receiver. And he had some drops and some inconsistency, but boy, this guy, and that was a very gifted draft, as we all know. It had Sammy Watt. You go down the list. It's not like there were 17 misses.
Yeah.
But Martavis Bryant, is he not what we're looking for in the league right now? A big, explosive athlete that can really dictate coverage down the field. This guy is spectacular.
Coach, you made the analogy to having a basketball team at your wide receiver corps. So now when I look at the Steelers, I see a diverse set of wide receivers with a bunch of different skills, and at any point, those guys can explode. Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, Marcus Wheaton. You still have Heath Miller. So now you've coached a team that's had that diversity. How do you keep everyone happy, and how do you balance it up on your play call sheet to make sure that the defense has to defend all of those weapons?
Just win, baby, because you're right. For me, and you have to be able to control the one guy. For me, it was Chris Carter. As long as you took care of Chris, and I had a very pliable rookie, Randy Moss, so he hadn't gotten to that diva point. Jake Reed with phenomenal big physical receiver. Jake wasn't going to say a word. Andrew Glover at tight end. He was just thrilled to be there. So kind of an unselfish group. But they're clearly with Pittsburgh, I'd say Cincinnati, maybe Arizona, probably the best, basketball team, the best group of five, so to speak. That you've got in the league, and it's a challenge for all of them, and it requires a certain unselfishness, and it requires that you're winning. I mean, it's harder for a guy, obviously, like a Roddy White. Remember how Roddy was complaining when they were winning. They were 6-0 at the time, and complaining he wasn't getting the ball enough. That's hard. And if you start down that path, it's very, very difficult. So you really got to hold it together. And it comes down to the quarterback, too. That quarterback's they got to be a guy that they don't want to challenge that quarterback. You have it in Andy Dalton. You certainly have it in Carson Palmer and Ben Roethlisberger. And how about Roethlisberger? You got to know he didn't get any snaps at all, right? I'm not going to play. I'll be here and substitute. We'll beat Cleveland, get a week off. Then I'll come back because we got that tough game against, I think it's Arizona or Seattle. I think they're at Seattle. And it's, by the way, I got to go in and light this thing up. That's amazing.
That reminded me, Coach, of going on a cross-country drive. I would drive from San Diego to North Carolina, and it would be like, okay, my brother would say, okay, I'll take the first leg. I'll drive the first 5 hours, then it's your turn. We'd get in the car. You go, I got a phone call. I got to take it. You got to drive. Right. That was basically what the Steelers did there with Ben Roethlisberger. I'm good. And that was an impressive win for them. And now they got the week off, which is great. He gets even healthier. Secondary still got some issues, but they're a fun team to watch, and they're in the thick of it now. Coach, last question for you. You had a tweet out there. It could be argued Andy Dalton, second-best quarterback in the NFL this season. And I know you've got an article coming up on your top 5 QBs this season. I'm going to ask you, can you spoil it for us? Can you give us a sneak peek on what that looks like? I'm still working it, and don't before already I can hear it just blowing up right now. Let's slow down a little bit. Let's look at my criteria, okay? I'm saying right now, the way they're playing, how would you have to rate these quarterbacks? Obviously with Peyton Manning hurting, Drew Brees is having to throw it up. He's already thrown the ball more than 400 times. So I'm looking at the comparisons to guys like, say, a Drew Brees versus a Cam Newton.
and the explosive they get when Cam's only throwing the ball 250 or 260 times to this point. I'm going to put an equation for people to look at, say, who's playing the best right now. And the numbers are pretty compelling. Obviously, the Peyton Mannings, the Aaron Rodgers are struggling. But you look at this list right now, and I'm going to move this around a little bit. But forget about the point about, well, how's he going to do in the playoffs? I'm not talking about that. Right now, Andy Dalton, Carson Palmer, Cam Newton, who you just got to get used to looking at it a little bit differently. These are the guys right now that are carrying their teams in a way that make them the best in the league.
How would you grade this overall QB play in the league-wide right now, considering where all your years around the league? Where are we at QB state of the league right now, Coach?
Well, I think we still have to hold on to the fact that we've probably got more. First off, we got more surefire Hall of Famers playing right now than ever. I mean, when you watch a matchup, God willing, Peyton Manning can continue to go, but like we saw a couple weeks ago, whether it's a Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady, or Brady versus a Breeze, or Breeze versus an Aaron Rodgers, I don't know that you could go back in history and say you got to watch so many of those matchups, guys that you knew were going into the Hall of Fame when you saw the matchup. I think we're as deep at quarterback play, but once you get to that point, then you fall off on a cliff, because there ain't, as I said many times, there aren't 32 people walking the face of the earth that can play effective quarterback in the National Football League. And so when you get past that 8 or 10 or 12 guys that show that they can do that, boy, that list falls off quick.
Well, Coach, we'll be looking forward to the article. You can check it out, NFL.com, Coach Billick's top 5 QBs this season. Coach, each and every week, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks for coming on.
All right, guys.